Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to today's Africa here on Love Bay Afrobeat Radio, your number one global Caribbean African online radio station. And we're delighted that you've joined us today. And we go live every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We are live on YouTube, on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and of course, TikTok. And today we are delighted to have another guest. Our brother, Johannes Mesgebe, has worked in a number of organizations before getting into what he is doing now. And so in a moment, we're going to bring him in so that we get to understand what he is doing and what he has done and what he's hoping to be doing in the next little while. And of course, you know that on Love Bay Afrobeat Radio, we bring in guests who are passionate about Africa, guests who are connected to Africa, guests who are serious about wanting to see Africa develop. And of course, we are developed and we will continue to develop just like any other continent around the world. And so we bring in guests to enlighten us so that we get to understand some of the things that are happening. So this is your host, Dr. FM here, Dr. Francis Minangi Mpindu, and we're delighted that you have joined us. And so from wherever you are joining us from, we go live in over 100 different countries around the world. We want you to let us know where you're listening from so that we can acknowledge you and also help other people to understand which part of the world you're coming from. And so, again, we are delighted that you've joined us today here on Love Bay Afrobeat Radio. We have quite a variety of programs, not just music, quite a variety of programs, 24/7. And so we're delighted. And I'm always grateful that our executive team makes sure that this platform is kept live. And of course, our media team and our chief engineer, Mr. TYB, who makes sure that we are on air. And he is behind the scenes right now. And so, again, welcome. So let me, without further delay, welcome our guest, Mr. Johannes Mesgebe. He is an African brother. And like I said, he has served in quite a number of organizations before what he has just entered into. And he is the president and CEO of Ubuntu International. And of course, we know that Ubuntu is a very special term in Africa for us as Africans. And so he's going to help us to unpack some of the things that he's doing now. He is still connected, I believe, with the sixth region of the African Union. And he is a brother who is active as far as Pan-Africanism and making sure that we stay together on the continent and even in the diaspora as well. So, Brother Johannes Mesgebe, thank you and welcome.
Thank you for having me, brother.
You know what? I have looked at some of the things you have done. We don't have time to mention all that. But we're just so delighted that we have a brother like you who has made time to join us in the studio today. And there was a time we actually tried to bring you into the studio and we had serious technical problems and I felt really, really bad, and so did our media team. But we're delighted that you have joined us today. So would you just fill us in on what Ubuntu International is all about? What is the vision? How did that come into being? Because we know that you were doing other things prior to all this. So fill us in on the journey that led to the birthing of Ubuntu International.
I think it's a continuation of what I have always been doing. It's basically to rebrand and reorient our beloved continent of Africa, but in different ways. My whole close to 20 years of experience has to do a lot with strengthening popular participation of African citizens in the affairs of the organization. And then on the other side, also working from the African Union, trying to connect the organization into the day-to-day life of our citizens. So yeah, now I've left the African Union and trying to work from the Ubuntu International. It's just basically to continue um, the implementation of the Agenda 2063. As you know, we have a flagship project of the Africa Agenda 2063, which involves everyone, whether you're in the private sector, whether you're in the academia, in the diaspora, whether you like in the member states and Rex. So yeah, as part of African citizen, so I'm trying to continue what I have always been doing. And for me, what I do with the Ubuntu International and with the African Union is it's not something that I do; it's something I am.
Oh, you know what? That is really, really encouraging to hear you say that. It's not just something that you do, this is something that you are. And I think that in itself tells us that your heart is into this. Your life is tied up with what is happening. And that just connects very well with what Miss Lila Watson, and the Aboriginal activist in Australia, who says that if you're coming to help me, you're wasting your time. But if you are coming because your own life is tied up with mine, then we can talk. So it seems like there's that strong connection between what you're doing and you're saying, it's not just what I do, but that's who I am. So what are some of the specific things that come to mind when you think of some of the areas you're talking about, the academia? I mean, not specifics as such, but what are some of the areas you hope to advance this vision in the academia, in the business, in the mental health, in health and politics and conflict resolution? Uh, you know, what are some of those things that come to mind, or some of the things that you have already mapped out in terms of what you would like to see happen?
Well, I think what I would like to see happen in Africa, I'm just one single person, but there are so many people doing a tremendous job in our continents. But I happen to be uh, one of those people working along with many of my fellow Africans in trying to contribute to the reform of the African Union. As we are today, we're discussing about Africa's position in the new global order. So,
Right.
in order for Africa to claim her rightful position within the global governance structure, so there is a need in Africa to reform internally. By that, what we mean is we really need to unify our continent if we need to be taken seriously in the global governance structure. So, what do we mean by uniting our continent? So, I think the African Union uh, is an organization. First of all, I think this needs to be clear to everybody. So, the African Union is the only Pan African institute that we have in our continent with the mandate to speak on behalf of 55 African countries. So, this is uh, a great opportunity that we have because if we want to engage the European Union, whether even Nigeria, the biggest economy, or South Africa is the second biggest economy in Africa, they want to engage China, European Union, America. So obviously they would be losers because they can't benefit. There is no fair interdependence with this organization. So I think uh, if we are unified as Africa and then engaging the European Union, the Chinese and the United States and all other partners, then I think we can talk about win-win. So, but I think before we claim our rightful place within the global governance structure. So the first thing that we need to do is reform ourselves internally, especially to work with our shared vision and common agendas as a continent. So to do that, while the African Union organization has a lot to do to connect themselves to the citizens, but I think there is also a need from the citizens, whether they're private sectors, the academia, the diaspora, to be able also to work with the African Union Commission so that the commission becomes people-centered and people-driven organization. So what I am doing is also, as one of those millions of African citizens, to basically contribute to the organization in becoming people-centered and people-driven organization.
You know what? It is very encouraging to hear you mention these things because when we look at what is happening globally, it seems there's a shift in so many ways. Some of the countries that used to be like at the center of everything, things have shifted. They no longer are. And some of those who were not in the center, they actually have found themselves in the center. And I think in our topic for today, you're basically saying we need to position ourselves because there is this shifting going around the world that we need to prepare ourselves. I think it was Professor Lumumba who has said over and over again, Africa used to be at the table, and there were times when we were actually the food being eaten, and then there were times when we were being invited to be a spectator. But he is now saying, and you are saying, it's time for us to have conversations, to make sure that we are participants. And I don't think we need permission from anybody to do that. We don't need anybody to give us the permission, but we need to position ourselves to participate. And that takes strategy, that takes perhaps a change in terms of our mindset, in terms of our behavior. Because there was a time, I remember reading a book that said that many of us, and I think they were speaking from the American context, they were saying many of our African American brothers and sisters have been pushed for so long out and marginalized that much or so much that even if they go somewhere, even if nobody's pushing them, they will just put themselves in a corner. And we are saying, no, this is a new day. And obviously, that was just an illustration, but obviously, we have work to do and we need to do this. Now, when you look at, I don't want us to get into unnecessary political nuances here, but what are some of the challenges you see in achieving the vision, the Agenda 2063, what Ubuntu International is trying to do, what other organizations and AU are trying to do? What are some of the challenges that are baffling us?
Well, I think first of all, what I would like to recognize is for many years, as you know, the Chinese have always had an agenda for Africa. The Europeans had an agenda for Africa. The Americans have an agenda for Africa, but Africa never had an agenda for Africa. So I think it's very important to recognize that it was during Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, when she was the chairperson of the African Union Commission in 2003, in 2013, that Africa came up for the first time with an agenda for the next 50 years. So Africa Agenda 2063. So that's first thing. So to have our own agenda for Africa. Now, it was unfortunate to have have lost an opportunity by Musa Faki, who should have worked to basically implement the agenda. Unfortunately, we wasted 8 years. We could have made a good progress in the implementation of the Agenda 2063. But of course, this is not to say that one of the achievements of the Agenda 2063 is the launching of the African Continental Free Trade Area. It's basically the WTO of Africa. I think that's a great achievement. Like I indicated earlier, there are about 16 flagship projects of the Africa Agenda 2063, which, if it were to be implemented, basically transforms our continents fully and helps us to rightfully claim our position globally. So yes, I think the flagship projects provides opportunities for the African private sectors. For example, one of the flagship projects deals with the African Economic Forum. You know, this is very, very important, and the Pan-African universities that could also provide opportunities for African academias. You know, I don't know if the textbooks that we have in Africa, I don't know who's written them. I don't know if we are benefiting from all those textbooks that we have in Africa. I don't know if they are meant to help uh, our students to basically unleash their potential to help our continent. I don't know. But I would like to believe that we really need to reform our curriculum, our education system in a such a way that could benefit our continent. So because we really need uh, to focus on implementing those flagship projects. I mean, they're out in the website for everybody to see what those flagship projects are. But
Yeah.
what I can say is these flagship projects, there are activities that should be implemented by the academias. There are activities, projects that could also be implemented by the private sectors, by the diasporas, by the African Union Commission itself, by the regional economic communities, by the member states. So the African Union Commission, which is the secretariat for the African Union, um, I hope we would continue to create platforms to bring all those actors in one table, the member states, the regional economic bodies, the academia, the private sectors, the diasporas, the young and the women. So all other actors to bring them to a table to discuss uh, our Agenda 2063 to basically even, the scoreboard and like what has been done already. It's been like years now since we've launched the Agenda 2063. So what have we accomplished so far? And we really need to evaluate then why have we failed to implement the things that we've promised. For example, one of the things that we were supposed to do was silencing the guns by 2020. Have we silenced the guns? You're talking about peace and security, so I'm referring to the peace and security of Africa. So we've not fired silenced the guns. Why? So we really need to, uh, I think, develop the database and what have we achieved so far. What are the things that we really need to work on, and that who is supposed to do what, where, when. So we really need to work on those things. Otherwise, we can't continue to complain on the external forces by externalizing our internal problems. So I would like to believe that, especially following the G20 in South Africa, I think that could give an opportunity, for Africa to come together. I would like to think that in February, during the next African Union Summit in Addis Ababa, President Ramaphosa of South Africa would present his report on the G20 that took place in South Africa. So he needs to present to the African leaders what has happened, the action plans, everything what they've agreed, and the way forward. So they need to agree on how they should, as Africans, work together, um, um, within the global governance structure. So they need to have a plan to engage the next G20 in Florida when the United States is hosting. So they need to work as a team, as a unified voice. I think only then uh, the rest of the world can take us seriously. Otherwise, if we cannot unite ourselves as a continent, if we cannot speak with one voice, then we're not gonna get anywhere.
There are a number of things that you've mentioned that are really, really profound, and I'm hearing what you're saying, and I'm still wondering based on some of the comments you have made, what are some of the things that have stopped us from not implementing some of those things? Because I think, you know, we all know that failure to plan is planning to fail. So if you have a game plan, this is where I am going. If you don't get there, then you should be able to say, what are the things that stopped me from getting there? So as we move forward, we're talking about, you made reference to a report, hopefully, that is to be presented in February next year by, you know, the president of South Africa, President Ramaphosa. And I'm because not all African nations are represented at the G20, and so I am wondering, what do we need to do to implement these? I mean, I know you're one person, but given some of the experiences you have had, I mean, you have worked with a number of organizations, including the UN, and so I am wondering, in 2025, uh, Africa, where are we in terms of implementing these? I know you have to be nice to some of the people you're working with, and you don't want to step on their big toes and all that, and I respect that. But if you were to speak to some of our leaders, and I know that some of our leaders do access this broadcast, what are some of the insights you would like to share with them with regards to implementation? I really feel that, I mean, we could talk and talk and talk and talk and invent more ideas, but it's the implementation. For example, you talked about uh, uh, the intercontinental or the continental in Africa in terms of free trade. You know, we still have people who are struggling. We were trying to bring in one of the guys who transports things from the southern part of Africa all the way to the northern part of Africa. And he gets stuck every now and again at the border. And some of these borders, there's no Wi-Fi, and we're trying to bring him into the studio to understand what are some of the dynamics with our transportation across Africa, which is a big thing. But we're still wrestling with this. So we're talking about free trade. What's stopping us? I, mean, I should hasten to say that we have some countries that have really changed things. And I know that is it Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. You know, they've done away with the visa. You know, like they've opened their countries. I'm not too sure how. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but they've removed some of those obstacles to facilitate easier connectivity for us as Africans. So again, implementation, Mr. Mesgebe, what's stopping us from implementing some of these great ideas that we have?
Well, I think for me, if I were to put all the problems in Africa in one word, is leadership. So we have a serious issue with leadership, uh, and I would like to believe that it will take time to realize this vision. So we need to have a long-term plan, and I think that's the most important thing. We really need to invest in developing leaders of the next generation of Africa. That's a very important part, I think. But right now, yes, there are things these current leaders could and should do. One thing is that they can do is, I think they need to move from political will into political commitments.
Mm-hmm.
They talked about uniting Africa, like the visa-free
Right.
Africa, but we still have the problem. So they really need to start talking the walk. I remember I was in a meeting with somewhere with Dangote, and for people like Dangote complaining about having issues with transporting his things to within African continents, and even for himself, challenges with visas to travel across the continent. Um, with transportation, we need to get out of Africa to fly to within Africa. It's uh, Africa was supposed to be connected on air, land, and sea, but we're still having a problem of doing that. So yeah, the issue is, I think, generally speaking, is leadership. But the current African leaders, I think there is a need to move to political commitments, because the African Union Commission, like I said, the only organization that we have with the mandate to speak on behalf of the continent. When you look into the people who are working at the African Union Commission, I think it's working for the African Union Commission should not be just a job. It's a call. It's a great privilege, but it's just unfortunate that our leaders are not taking it seriously, because we need the best and the brightest Africans to work in this organization. But it's unfortunate that's not the fact on the ground. So when I talked about reforming Africa, so reform starts with the leaders and with the organization, right from the African Union. But it's sad, when Musa Faki was at the African Union Commission, they would talk about reforming Africa, but they were not ready to reform themselves. They should have started reforming Africa by reforming themselves first at the leadership of the African Union Commission. So you can't just tell others what to do when you yourself are not willing to do it. So that's why I referred to Musa Faki's 8 years of leadership at the African Union Commission. It was just a waste of time. It was just really sad. I think our leaders need to, if they are serious, to put our continent in a rightful place within the global governance structure, then I think they need to commit themselves to the African Union Commission. That is a very great opportunity that we have to unite us and to help us claiming our rightful position in the new global order. And this is, I believe, the right time for Africa to do so. And I do hope that I think in the next African Union Summit in Addis Ababa, the opportunity for President Ramaphosa to basically galvanize the leaders across the continent to speak with one voice would create an opportunity to internally reform our continent. And some of the African countries, for example, let's say if Zambia has a problem with South Africa, and this should not be a platform to fight South Africa in engaging the global community. So I think we really need to look at the bigger picture. President Ramaphosa, I hope that he would consult not only with the member states, but also with all the other stakeholders I mentioned, the private sectors, the civil society organizations, the academias, the diasporas, to consult on how to approach the next African Union Summit in order to present not only a report about what has happened at the G20 in South Africa, but also the way forward. How do we want to engage the rest of the world by leveraging our geopolitical importance as the world? We don't know even where we're heading as a global community. We're living in a very interesting time. So I don't know what uh, the global governance structure looks like, whether or not the United Nations would continue to play a role. Uh, I don't know what role the United Nations could play in designing the global governance structure. I don't know the G8, G20, G7, G20. I don't know the EU, the BRICS. All these forces are key players in framing how the governance would look like. So Africa, as part of the G20, as part of the BRICS, as part of the United Nations, with the biggest seat at the United Nations General Assembly, yeah, we have a role to play, but only if we we are ready to do our parts. But yes, I agree with you that we have a lot to do internally within the continent. Our leaders are uh, uh, it's they have a lot of works to do before they can claim their rightful place in the global structure, and that's why the external forces are using these uh, spaces to continue dividing us. Uh, and yeah, I see a point, but again, we need to work together with the Commission and with our member states to help our continents to be credible.
Mm. I can see the diplomatic skills in you in terms of remaining objective and making sure that we are not beating anybody over the head just for the sake of hitting them over the head. And I appreciate your sensitivity to the kinds of issues that we're dealing with in Africa. And I think I respect people like yourself. It's so easy to go on air and bash everybody as if you and I have the answers to all that is going on. We don't. And I am hearing you saying that we need to work together. Obviously, there are issues in South Africa, in Botswana, in Eswatini, and Lesotho, and Zimbabwe, and Namibia, Zambia, Malawi, Mozambique, uh, Kenya, Tanzania, Ethiopia, Ghana, Nigeria, Burkina Faso. I mean, we wherever there are people, we are bound to see things differently, and we have to respect that. However, I'm also hearing you say that we can't continue to stay where we are because whatever has helped us to get there is not able to help us to go beyond. So we need to do something. So you're talking about bringing people together to the women, youth, politicians, academicians, health sectors, businesses. So we need to work together. There's no question about that. One of the things I am interested in to find out where do you see our young people? Where do you see the youth? Um,
I think one of the, like I said, the first of all, sorry about that. When we talk of African youth, we're talking about 70%, close to 70% of the population of Africa is under the age of
yep.
29. So that is a demographic advantage. So uh, one of the greatest advantages that we have as Africa is our population. Uh, but the question is, are we really investing on these young people? So I think it's very important to take it as a blessing, not as a curse.
Mm.
Um, Now, the leadership aspect that I talked about is very, very important. Like I said, if the problem in our continent is leadership, then we can only fix it by reforming the idea of leadership. So, what do we mean by leadership? That's very, very important. Uh, and there is no shortcut. It takes time.
Yeah.
So, I would like to believe that um, the young people are speaking loudly and clearly, to be taken seriously, not only as leaders of the next generation, as the future, but also leaders of today. Um, uh, you've seen it, whether it is during election in Tanzania or during the reforms, like you mentioned, the Sahel region with the Burkinabe, Niger, all this, how leaders in these areas are received by the citizens, even though the African Union Commission uh, bans those countries from becoming the member of the African Union because of the, uh, according to the Constitutive Act of the African Union. So unconstitutional. If you come to power unconstitutionally, then they don't take you as a member. But again, have citizens also receiving you warmly, and so how do you reconcile that? So I think we're living in a very interesting time. Yes, the African continent, so the African Commission, the different regional economic bodies, I think they need to coordinate their work when it comes to investing in the leaders of the next generation of Africa. There are so many people, so many organizations working on youth, but we don't know who is doing what, where, when, because the resources that is spent in this area, I think it needs to be coordinated well, so that we know we know who is doing what, where, when it comes to. I will give you just one simple example. Now, this is what one of the things that I did when I was working uh, actively on the youth leadership program. Young people, they have manufacturable ideas, but they do not have access to finance. And we know there are a lot of foundations and organizations in our world with a lot of money, but have no idea what to do with their money. So the question is, how can we help young people with ideas if they don't have collateral? If they don't have access to hustles, they don't have collaterals to access to finance, but they have ideas. But so one of the things that I did was I launched the Young African Entrepreneurs Forum. So I remember I invited a couple hundred young people from across Africa to Addis Ababa, and then I also invited the President of the African Development Bank, Dr. Kabiruka, at the time, and a lot of other leaders in the foundation, and philanthropists, and successful private sector people. And then I had to ask the young people with ideas to present their ideas, and then the people from the private sector to see how they can invest in these ideas. But the idea was for me to launch the African Youth Fund. That was the idea. So what we could do is, let's say we have African Youth Fund or African Entrepreneurs Fund. We put money in this fund, and that fund would be financing projects of young people. Let's say, for example, you can launch a program like a competition where young people can present their concepts on agriculture, let's say, or agribusiness or tourism, because that could create a lot of opportunity for employment in our continent. But even if they don't have money, just because they have a great idea to transform our agribusiness and our tourism, then they can present their idea to the fund for financing. Now, the fund could look at these ideas and find a way to finance these projects in partnership with these young people. So the fund can bring their money and expertise, and the young people can bring their idea, and they work together. So basically, that was the idea of the African Youth Fund that I launched. So, like, by creating an opportunity to empower uh, economically and young people in the creative industry, young people in the education. So I think by helping all those young people, wherever they are and whatever they do, I think we could. Now there is this saying. Uh, there is nothing for us without us. This is basically what young people are saying. There is nothing for us without us. Now, a lot of when there is election, a lot of our leaders, they mobilize the young people for the election. And when there is conflict, young people are the victims. Then nobody is involving the young people in peace building. Nobody is bringing the young people to be part of the panel of the wise on the elders group. So we're not ready in taking our young people seriously. But again, sometimes do you as a young people, do you really want to wait until they take you seriously, or you make your point? I think it's also for young people to, they don't need to be presidents, they don't need to be ministers or member of parliaments to be leaders. No matter where they are and whatever they do, they can make a difference. And that's what leadership is. In wherever they are and whatever they do, they can make a difference at a community level, in a school, and wherever they are. So by making a difference, they can also be taken seriously. So yeah, the African Union and its partners, I think I would like to believe needs to put huge investments. It's one thing to talk about reforming our organizations, like physically, like we talk about connecting our continents, air and land and sea. What about investing in our people? So you don't see that a lot. But I think that's very important if we wanted to transform our continent.
It is really wonderful to have this conversation with you. There's no question that you are very resourceful. You are very knowledgeable in terms of some of the things happening on the continent, as well as in the diaspora, because you keep in touch with people and some of the organizations you have worked with and are working with, including Ubuntu International. Now you are focusing on what can we do, not just to change the mindset, but what can we do to implement ideas and elements of creativity. And again, we are just so delighted. To those of you who just joined us, thank you for being with us here on Love Bay Afrobeat Radio, your number one online African Caribbean um, station. And we are delighted that you have joined us today. We are joined today by Mr. Johannes Mesgebe, who is the president and CEO of Ubuntu International. And we're talking about Africa in the new global order. Things are shifting. The Africa we knew many years back, it's not the same. And it will continue to change. The global village that we knew a few years back, including last year, is continuing to change. There's so much shifting around, and I think this topic is really important. You're talking about um, strategically placing ourselves at the point that we are able to participate and what is happening globally. And you're saying we should not do this on our own, but we should collaborate, we should coordinate. And I liked that emphasis on young people. Your response to my question there is just, brilliant. It's profound. You're saying, is there a way we can find out how many other organizations are focusing on youth in Africa and what are they doing? Let's come together and let's bring other people with capacity, with the financial capacity to be able to say, young people with your creativity, hey, listen, let's hear what you have in mind. And these people in Africa, I mean, we have giants, we have people who have financial resources who are really able to invest in our young people. But that cannot happen if we don't know who is doing what. So that's a very good point. And I trust that those who are working with our young people in Africa would take this to heart and say that we need to do something about collaborating with other people. Now, who would be the key player to bring in this idea of bringing young people together to talk
Well, I
to
think
them
the
about collaborating?
well, I think the Africa, like I said, the African Union Commission is mandated on behalf of the 55 African countries. Uh, uh, so one of the area that the Commission could work is, the youth development, and we have a program called the African Youth Voluntary Corps Program. But when I was at the Commission, Madame Zuma, the then African Union Commission chairperson, was very committed to transform the program for the young people, because she wanted to make sure every department at the African Union Commission has a youth desk, and in anything and everything that they do, she was committed to make sure that they consult with the young people. Now, I think the African Union Commission could facilitate the consultation of Africans by bringing the member states, government organizations, the young people, the private sectors, the academias, the partners. So African Union could bring all those stakeholders together to discuss about the role of the young people in creating the Africa we want. Because, like I said, the African Union has a mandate. But yes, it's unfortunate. You go to every village in our continent and you talk to the young people. If you ask them if they know about the UNICEF, the UNFCPA, whatever, the United Nations agencies, they will tell you what UNICEF is, what UNFPA is, what UNDP is. But if you ask them if they know anything about the different departments at the African Union, they have no idea. They would not tell you, because the African Union is disconnected from the day-to-day life of the African citizens.
That's very sad, isn't it?
Very much. So that is why it's not taken seriously. It's not credible. But again, we need to help facilitate this consultation. We are the African Union. We are the Africa we want. So the African Union, the presence of the African Union needs to be felt at a national level. So, like the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of African governments, they could actually even have, presence of the African Union in their respective countries, and by incorporating some of the programs of African Union into a national agenda, they could promote what the African Union is at a national level. Yeah, so I think the African Union could do that. And I can only say that if the African Union Commission is committed to bringing together all the stakeholders, including the governments, partners, and also the most importantly, the young people, to sit on a table to discuss about, okay, as Africa, where do we want to go? Like, we said we have Agenda 2063, we've identified the strategies, and we also have said, okay, this is what the young people can do, the privacy. So if we know where we want to go, if we know the strategy, how to get where we want to go, now let's define what the roles of the different stakeholders.
Mm.
Now that needs to be consulted with the young people, and the young people could play their role. So yes, the African Union has a mandate and could do this. I'm sorry, we don't have. I don't have, like I said, we don't have much time. I have another meeting to go to, but
I understand
yeah,
that.
I'm sure this is not going to be our last conversation, but definitely we will also follow up.
Most definitely. And I want to thank you for making time to be with us today. Yes, you had informed us that you have another important meeting coming up just in a few minutes. And we just want to say thank you very much for making time to be with us. You are a very resourceful person. And we will definitely bring you back so that we can continue on some of the things that you mentioned. I was taking some notes here, and also some of the things that you have started to do. And I'm sure there would be a room for us to be able to hear some feedback on some of the things that you've been doing. Again, to our viewers, thank you very much for being with us. Our
By the way, before I you end,
Yes,
it's when I talk about the African Union, or generally Africa claiming her rightful position in the global governance structure, it would be difficult to achieve that without uh, a great partnership with the Caribbeans.
that's very
Uh,
true.
I think it goes without saying, the bridge between Africa and the Caribbean is very, 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 very important. Uh, uh, and I am so happy now. I see the communication between Africa and the Caribbean is going very well. There's a lot of partnership programs going on,
Hmm.
and together, I think we could achieve a lot. And I am so happy that people like yourselves playing a huge role in connecting the Caribbeans with Africa through your programs. And I hope some of your programs you will be able to do it from Africa as well. Uh,
Definitely.
Hopefully, you will do it maybe during one of the AU summits. You travel to Addis Ababa or some other country where they do like the AU summit, or bring maybe some leaders from the Caribbeans. So I think it's very, very important to connect, and not at a leaders level, but also even at the community level. The Caribbeans and the our African brothers and sisters. So I think it's very, very important. I'm so happy to see. Obviously, the Prime Minister of Barbados. I mean, she was in Addis Ababa during the I mean, she gave an amazing speech. So yeah, so this is just to say that I'm extremely happy that we're bridging the gap. Well, rather strengthening the ties between Africa and the Caribbean. So I'm extremely happy about that.
And thank you very much for making time. And we know that we will definitely bring you back because there's so much to talk about. And I'm so glad you brought the African and Caribbean connectivity right there, because it's there, and we will definitely want to maintain it. And we have a lot in common. And so again, thank you very much. I will make sure that our executive team at Love Bay Afrobeat Radio aware that we want to be able to broadcast from Africa. Who knows, the next time you're meeting up in Addis, we'll make sure that, and we would also want to be able to connect with some of those people in those key positions which you have access to and we don't at the grassroots. So please connect us with them so that we can also hear their perspectives as well. But Amasagnalo, thank you very much for making time to be with us today, and we look forward to having another time with you again. So, again, to our viewers, thank you very much for joining us here on Love Bay Afrobeat Radio. This has been your host, Dr. FM, Dr. Francis Munangi Mpindu, here on Love Bay Afrobeat Radio. And we do bring in guests from various parts of this global village to interact with us. And so, again, I just want to remind you that at exactly the hour, at 1 o'clock, there is the Caribbean flavor with Mr. Marcus and Miss Jen to Blue, and you don't want to miss that. And again, thank you for being with us. Thank you again to our guest, Mr. Johannes Mesgebe, who is the president and CEO of Ubuntu International. And we learned a lot, and we're hoping that we'll be able to let other people know. So I hope that you will be able to, if you haven't already done that, to subscribe, so that we know that when recordings, broadcasts are made, you are able to access these recordings and pass them on to other people as well. We go live every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we bring in a variety of guests. And so, again, thank you very much for being with us. And let's keep on keeping on doing the good things. And let's be voices of hope in a world where our young people need guidance, our older people need guidance, everybody need guidance and information. I just thought that there's this powerful native Canadian, Dr. Emily Ferris, who says that knowledge is empowerment. And when we share information like this, we're really empowering one another so that we know things. When we know things, we want them to be able to go into our hearts, and we want to be able to put them into action. So we think of the head, the heart, and the hand to make sure that we keep all those coordinated. And of course, you're not alone. Let's coordinate with other people as well. So thank you very much for being with us today. Look forward to seeing you again next week. God willing.